My name is Daniel Ward. I'm 43, and until recently I believed I understood the architecture of my own life. Routine, structure, predictable days, those were the pillars that held everything together. But the night I found the message on my wife's phone, the foundations cracked so quietly I didn't even notice until I was already falling through. It was close to midnight when I stepped into the living room. The apartment was dark except for the thin glow from the kitchen window. Emma had left her phone on the coffee table, screen pressed to the glass surface. I didn't mean to look. I swear I didn't. But when the notification lit up the room, the name on the screen felt like a hand closing around my throat. Can't wait to see you again. No name. No initials. Just a gray bubble from an unknown number. At first, I told myself it meant nothing. Probably a colleague, maybe even spam. But then another message appeared, as if the sender had been waiting for the chance to strike. I still think about that night. My pulse crashed into my ears. My body reacted before my mind did. I reached for the phone, stared at the words, reading them over and over, each repetition cutting deeper. The bedroom door creaked softly. Emma stood there wrapped in a thin robe, her hair falling messy around her face, her eyes half asleep. "Dan, why are you still up?" Her voice, soft, familiar, sounded suddenly like something from a stranger. My chest tightened. I hid the phone behind my back. "I couldn't sleep," I said, my voice barely steady. She walked toward me, the floorboards groaning under her steps. The closer she came, the heavier the air felt. She reached out and touched my arm, warm, gentle, practiced. "Come to bed," she whispered. And for a second, I considered pretending. Pretending I hadn't seen anything. Pretending life was still the same. But then the screen lit again in my hand. "I miss your touch." I felt something inside me crumble. A quiet, numbing collapse. Emma froze when she saw the reflection of the light on my skin. Her eyes dropped just a fraction. Just enough to betray fear before she could hide it. "Daniel, what are you holding?" I lifted the phone slowly, like I was presenting evidence at a trial neither of us had prepared for. Her breath caught. The room shrank around us. "Who is he?" I asked. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The silence between us was louder than any scream. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked like someone trying to reach for a lie but finding nothing to grab onto. "Dan, I can explain," she finally whispered. But explanations require truth, and whatever truth she had was already buried under the weight of those messages. I walked past her without another word. I didn't slam the bedroom door, I just closed it slowly, quietly. Quiet hurt more, and as I lay awake beside her motionless body hours later, staring into the darkness, a single thought carved itself into my mind with the precision of a scalpel. This betrayal wasn't the beginning. It was the symptom of something that had been rotting for a long time. My phone buzzed twice before I even reached my apartment door, but I didn't look at it. Not because I didn't care, because I already knew who it would be. And I wasn't ready to hear her voice again. Not after the way she looked at me in that dim hallway. Not after what she told me. I locked the door behind me, leaned my forehead against the wood, and tried to breathe. But the air felt thick, heavy, as if the walls themselves shared the secret she'd dropped into my hands. For years I'd been able to read her face. A single twitch of her mouth, a glance away, the way she played with her sleeve when she was nervous. But that look she gave me before I left, wide, terrified, and almost guilty, was something entirely new. Something she had been hiding for a long time. The phone buzzed again. This time I forced myself to look. "Mia, please don't disappear, Mia. Not tonight." He tossed the phone on the table and walked to the sink. My hands were shaking. I opened the tap, splashed cold water on my face, leaned on the counter, and stared at the droplets sliding down my palms. Someone had been in her building. Someone had stood outside her door. Someone had waited. And the part that haunted me most, she had known something was wrong long before tonight. She just never said it. I walked to the window and pushed it open. The city hummed below me, The late evening traffic painting streaks of white and red across the wet asphalt. People rushing places, unaware that someone was playing a sick game in the shadows of a quiet residential hallway. I grabbed a chair, sat down, and finally picked up my phone. "Me, I'm here," her reply came instantly, as if she'd been holding the phone in both hands, waiting for the message to appear. "Mia, can you come back, please? I can't be alone right now." I exhaled slowly. Going back meant stepping deeper into something I didn't understand. But not going back meant leaving her with the fear she had been carrying alone for weeks. I grabbed my jacket when I stepped into the hallway. A distant sound echoed down the stairwell, slow, deliberate footsteps. Too heavy to be casual, but too calm to be rushed. I froze. The steps stopped. Silence filled the air like a held breath. I waited. Nothing. I moved closer to the stairwell railing and leaned forward. Nobody. But I wasn't imagining it. Someone was there. Someone had been listening. I turned sharply and headed outside, my heartbeat pounding against my ribs. The night air struck my face like ice, but clarity came with it. I walked faster, almost running, the streetlights flickering across my skin. When Mia opened her door, she didn't say a word. She just threw her arms around me, gripping my shirt so tightly her knuckles turned white. I held her, felt her trembling against me, and something inside me cracked open. Fear, anger, and a cold, rising determination. Whoever was stalking her wasn't afraid to get close, and if they were watching her, they might already be watching me too. I didn't go home that night. The thought of leaving Mia alone in that apartment where someone had been close enough to listen through the door made my stomach twist. She didn't argue this time. She just nodded, like she had already run out of strength to resist anything. I pulled a chair to the front door and sat there in the dark, listening to every sound coming from the hallway. The building creaked like an old ship. Pipes moaned inside the walls. Footsteps, distant at first, then stopping on the floor above. A door clicked somewhere down the hall. At one point, Mia came out of the bedroom and stood silently behind me. "You're freezing," she whispered, draping a blanket over my shoulders. Her fingers brushed my neck, warm, trembling. I didn't move, not because I didn't want to, but because some line inside me felt too thin now, too fragile to cross. Around 4 a.m., Mia finally fell asleep on the couch. I sat beside her, watching the faint movement of her breathing. I could tell she hadn't slept properly in days. Her face had that pale, brittle look people get when fear becomes part of their blood. My phone buzzed. "Alex, a single message. You awake?" I stared at the screen. It felt heavy in my hand, like answering him would open a door I couldn't close again. Another message. "We need to talk. Now." I looked at Mia. She was curled up, vulnerable, one hand gripping the blanket like it was the only solid thing left in her world. I stepped out onto the balcony to call him back. His voice came through instantly, tight, controlled, the way people sound when they're one breath away from snapping. "Where are you?" "At home," I lied. Silence. Not disbelief, not anger. Something colder. "Right," he said. "Listen. I need you to stop coming around my place so much." I leaned on the railing, staring at the empty parking lot below. "Is that what you called to say?" "No," he replied. "I called because Mia is acting strange, hiding things, whispering. She jumps when I walk into the room. Something's off." If only he knew. "Maybe you should ask her," I said. I did. She said nothing's wrong. Then he added, quieter, "But I know she's lying. And I think you know why." My grip on the phone tightened. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" He let out a breath. "Look, man. I'm trying to be calm here, but I'm not blind. She trusts you more than she trusts me, and I can't shake the feeling that you're not telling me something." I had no answer, not one that wouldn't detonate everything. Alex continued, "Just stay away for a bit. Give us space. She's my wife. I'll handle whatever's going on." Handle? Like this was a small problem. Like a stalker following his wife was something he could handle. "Alex," I said slowly, What if the problem isn't you two? What if it's someone else? What do you mean? I hesitated. If I told him about the envelope, Mia would never forgive me. If I stayed silent, I'd be letting her walk around with a target on her back. Forget it, I muttered. No, he snapped. Tell me, but I didn't, I couldn't, I have to go. I hung up before he could say anything else. When I stepped inside, I saw Mia standing in the hallway, blanket around her shoulders, staring at me with tired, frightened eyes. You talked to him, she said. I nodded. What did he say? That he feels something's wrong. She closed her eyes for a moment, then whispered, he'll blame you. Before he believes me, I didn't argue. We both knew it was true. I spent the rest of the morning securing every window, checking every lock, walking the hallway like a guard dog. But the whole time, a thought kept drilling deeper into my mind. Someone had been here. Someone close enough to leave a picture. Someone bold enough to stand outside the door in silence. At noon, Mia called from the kitchen. Marco, there's another one. Another what? She held something in her shaking hand. Another envelope. This one wasn't on the floor. It was taped to the inside of the window. Someone had stood there, inches away from where she slept. And inside, there was only one line, typed in all caps. I know what you're hiding. Mia looked at me with terror filling her eyes, and for the first time, I felt a fear that wasn't for her. It was for both of us. The night after Daniel confronted me felt like a long stretch of empty highway, quiet, cold, but full of the sense that something was following me just outside the headlights. I barely slept. My mind kept looping the look in his eyes, that mix of recognition and disbelief, like he was finally waking up from a dream he didn't know he'd been trapped in. And the worst part was knowing he was right. I did no more than I admitted. I always had. By morning, the air in my apartment felt suffocating. I opened the window, but even the winter breeze didn't help. The walls felt closer, as if the entire building had shifted while I slept, leaning inward, listening. I made coffee just to have something to hold onto, something warm, solid, that didn't ask questions. But the quiet didn't last long. At 9:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Though I knew exactly who it was before I even opened it. We're not done. Check your doorstep. My stomach tightened. I walked to the front door slowly, half expecting Daniel to be waiting outside. But the hallway was empty. The only thing on the floor was a small padded envelope. No sender, no label. Just my name handwritten in blue ink. Inside was a USB drive and a note. You should have told him everything. Now he'll learn it without you. For a second, I thought about throwing it away, pretending I never saw it. But that instinct died quickly. I plugged the USB into my laptop, and a single video file appeared. No title, no metadata. My hand shook as I hit play. It was footage of Daniel's wife. Not the polished version he used to show me in photos. Not the smiling woman at charity events or dinner parties. This version was raw, secretive. She was sitting in a dim hotel room, speaking quietly to someone off camera. I can keep him in the dark, she whispered. But he's starting to ask questions. If he finds out what we did, everything falls apart. My throat closed. I didn't know this footage existed. I didn't know she had said those words. And suddenly, the pieces I'd been avoiding started arranging themselves whether I wanted them to or not. The betrayal wasn't simple. It wasn't emotional or romantic. It wasn't even about me. It was about something bigger, something that had been set in motion years ago, long before I ever met Daniel in that quiet bar on North Howstead. Before he ever looked at me with the kind of trust he never should have had. I replayed the video twice, looking for details, anything I could use to understand who recorded it and why they sent it now. On the third replay, I noticed something, a reflection in the window behind her, a figure, tall, familiar. It wasn't Daniel, but I had seen that silhouette before. Just as I leaned forward to study it, my phone buzzed again. He's with her now. If you want to stop what comes next, go. Room 417. My pulse hammered so hard, I felt it in my teeth. I grabbed my jacket and keys without thinking. There was no time to question the source, no time to weigh consequences. If Daniel really went to see her, if he confronted her with half-truth and paranoia sharpened by the night we had, things could unravel fast. Dangerous fast. When I stepped outside, the city felt sharper than usual. The wind cut deeper, the noise sounded harsher, the people on the street moved with a purpose I couldn't match. I got into my car and started driving toward the address attached to the message. A hotel, not a fancy one. Old brick, narrow windows, the kind of place people used for secrets, not vacations. The whole way there, my mind ran through possibilities, none of them good. I kept seeing Daniel's face from last night, the tension in his jaw, the betrayal twisting everything he thought he knew. If he walked into that hotel room believing his wife had been lying to him for years, and knowing him the way I did, it could get ugly. When I arrived, I rushed inside without letting myself hesitate. The hallway smelled like old carpet and bleach. My footsteps echoed as I climbed to the fourth floor, each step heavier than the last. Room 417. The door was cracked open. Light from inside spilled into the hallway, a cold, bluish glow. I approached slowly, heart pounding. I pushed the door with my fingertips. Inside, Daniel stood with his back to me. His wife sat across from him, her hands trembling, her face pale. Between them was a laptop showing the same video I had watched minutes earlier. "Mark," Daniel said without turning. His voice was different, calm in a way that wasn't calm at all. "You made it just in time." He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes made my skin go cold. He wasn't confused anymore. He wasn't hurt. He was something much worse. "Tell her," he said. "Tell her what you've been hiding." And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just trying to save him. I was trying to save myself. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I drifted in and out, half dreaming, half replaying everything that had led me to this point. The lies, the looks, the whispers behind closed doors, the man on my porch with eyes too calm for someone who'd crossed every line I had left up. By morning, I wasn't scared anymore. I was hollow, and something about that emptiness, it clarified everything. I went to the office before sunrise. The security guard barely looked up when I walked past. I don't think he noticed the way my hands trembled or how tightly I gripped my phone. I locked myself inside my office and pulled up the files I wasn't supposed to see, mails between my wife and the man she said she barely knew, financial transfers, plans that fit together like jagged pieces of some cruel puzzle, all pointing to one truth. This wasn't just an affair. It was a setup, a long, careful dismantling of my career, my reputation, my sanity. At 9:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "We should talk." No name. No need for one. I knew who it was. I typed the address of the old storage unit downtown. Neutral, empty, no cameras, no neighbors. A perfect place for a conversation that couldn't exist on record. He arrived exactly on time, too punctual, too composed, and for a moment, we just stood there. Two men who shouldn't have had anything in common except the same woman pulling our strings. "You weren't supposed to dig this deep," he said. "You were supposed to break sooner." I laughed, quiet and tired. "You think I broke?" He studied me for a moment. "I think she underestimated you." He talked for a while after that. Too much. He confessed more than he should have, as if he needed someone to witness the architecture of his own corruption. My wife didn't just cheat. She engineered it. A false harassment report, a staged financial discrepancy, a narrative where I'd look paranoid, unstable, dangerous, and he was her instrument, her leverage, her weapon when emotion wasn't enough. I let him talk until the words turned into arrogance, until arrogance turned into clarity. "You're going to walk away," he said, quietly. "She'll get everything, and you'll disappear with whatever dignity you have left." But that was the moment he realized he'd miscalculated. Not because I threatened him, not because I raised my voice, but because I smiled just faintly, like someone who'd finally stopped lying to himself. "You two planned this for months," I said. "You think I came here without planning to?" He frowned. "What are you?" I stepped aside, and he finally saw the small recording light behind him, blinking steadily from the shelf. I'd turned the tables before he even walked in, his face drained of color. "You think you're the only one she lied to?" I asked. "She didn't tell you about the insurance fraud, the offshore accounts, the partner she's been playing on the side that isn't you or me?" For the first time, he looked unsteady, betrayal hitting him in real time. "She used both of us," I whispered. "But only one of us is walking out clean. The rest happened fast. Rage, confusion, the desperate attempt to grab the device. But I was faster. Not stronger, not more dangerous. Just finally willing to stop pretending. When it was over, he wasn't dead. But he was done. His confession sat safely on my phone. Copies already uploaded, scheduled, distributed. And as I walked out into the morning light, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control, not peace, not healing, but control. When I got home, my wife was waiting on the porch, tears perfectly placed, as if rehearsed. "Mark," she whispered, "we can fix this." I looked at her like someone seeing a ghost of a life that no longer existed. "We already did," I said, because the truth was finally free, and now it was her turn to break.